Welcome to the Relaxed Dog Podcast, the podcast where the dogs are the stars of the show. Hi, and welcome to the Relaxed Dog Podcast, brought to you by The Relaxed Dog. Thank you very much for listening. I am your host, Robert Ober, and I hope that you and your dog are well. This week, we'll be discussing a couple of news snippets. I'm going to ask for some help with a new little competition thing, and our guest this week is Sharon Garrard, and she's going to share a very special story on her 3 dogs, Shy, Bob, and Shorty. First, over the last few weeks, I usually ask all our guests to complete the sentence. I can't believe my dog ate... ... And each month, I'm going to ask for your help in selecting what you think is the top answer. And top could mean a lot of things. So this month, and we've got a couple of extras because we started a bit late, and this is the first one. There's going to be Crackles. Crackles is a good dog. He didn't eat anything that he shouldn't have. We got Dolly with some poo. Bruce ate the garbage. Coda chomped down on concrete. Tank pinched other dogs' dinners. And Willow, a beanie, apart from a few other things. So I'll put that, post that on the Facebook group, and you can vote on who you think should be the top answer. And in some positive doggy news, the Chinese Agricultural Ministry is no longer considering dogs as livestock, and that's great news, especially with the Yulin Dog Meat Festival not too far away. So good to see some change happening in that country. Also in China, there is we saw a Hachiko story. And though most people remember the story of Hachiko, but more recently, a little dog and its owner, the owner was committed into hospital for a COVID-19 case and sadly passed away after about 5 days. Now, there are reports that the little dog would come into the hospital and hang around the canteen area and I've read up to a couple of months, with the staff sort of like feeding and looking after the dog. And that carried on until operations were going back to normal and they weren't allowed to do that anymore. So I believe that now the dog's now gone for adoption. So a sad sort of story, but it shows you the true heart of a dog and just waiting there day after day for its human companion to come back. And in Richmond, Virginia, a borzoi by the name of Eris, who I think is around 2 to 3 years old, has just gone on to some fame and fortune for having a long nose. And when they say long nose, it's 12.2 inches, so that's a 30 centimetre snout. So I believe that Eris has around, or getting close to, 200,000 followers on Instagram. So let's see if I can put a picture of that in the Facebook group. And now on to the interview with Sharon Garrard. Okay, well, welcome everyone. I am speaking to Sharon, and we're going to have a slight departing of the usual one dog story, because these guys, Sharon's dogs, come as a trio. So welcome, Sharon.
Thank you. Hello, how are you?
I am very well and very happy to speak to you this evening.
Oh, thank you. I'm excited for your question.
So who are we going to talk about this evening?
So we're talking about my 3 dogs, Bob, Shorty, and Shy. And they are from Fiji originally, and I brought them back to Australia with me after living over there and having them as pets and couldn't leave them behind.
So tell us how that started.
So I was actually working in Fiji with my ex-partner who had bought a property to turn into a restaurant. And we kind of moved over there thinking that we'd probably live there forever. And obviously there's a problem with street dogs everywhere there. It's like they are on the last part of, like, not the food chain. I don't want to say food chain because they don't eat dogs over there. But just the dogs are not really respected. And so we ended up getting our first dog. And then we got a second one, and we only wanted 2. And then we ended up with 3 because one just turned up, was escaped from somewhere that wasn't very good. That was Shy. And yeah, like we just ended up with 3 dogs that were like classed as pets. They were everything.
Okay.
And
so what sort of time frame between the first 2 or between all 3?
All within the same year. We did have the first dog, Bob, we got, and then we did get another dog called Stumpy, actually, that we lost to parvo, because that's rife over there, because people, that whole timing wise of having a dog and then when they're a puppy to when you can get the jabs and stuff for parvo is quite a short window. Mm-hmm. And anything can go wrong in that window, unfortunately. So we lost Stumpy, and then we ended up with Shorty a few months later, and then probably 7 months later, Shy turned up living under the restaurant once it had opened, like looking for scraps. And I kind of said to myself that we would rehabilitate her and find her a home, but it didn't turn out very well.
And could you sort of describe breed-wise who they are? Or is it too hard to sort of tell as a bit of a mix? Or do they take after anything in particular?
Yeah. It's super impossible to actually pinpoint the breed. I am thinking of doing the DNA, but like, so Bob and Shorty are like both tan dogs and literally look like Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo. Everybody asks if they're related. So I think they've got some ridgeback in them because the back end goes up, like if they're...
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But then also Shorty is almost like got some Jack Russell staffy in her. She's the short, stocky one.
Okay. Yep.
Imagine a ridgeback mixed with a staffy. Yeah, and you'll see from the photos that they look very similar. But yeah, imagine Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo. That's the only way I can describe them these days. And then Shy is like a wolf, like a little wolf dog. So I always have this theory that she came to us from the mountains of Fiji. And she really is a wolf, and she's a very unique character as well.
And if you had to try and get like an approximate age, any ideas on that? Or
yeah, they're probably all turning 10 this year. So that's from me working out, like guessing.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously they were all puppies when they came to me.
Okay, well that answers the next question. So you've had them around about that 8-9 year sort of mark.
Oh yeah, we got them. They were literally like probably shouldn't have even left their mother.
Wow, that young.
Yeah, so maybe 2 months old max that we got them.
Okay. And how long were you all together in Fiji?
Nearly 2 years, and then decided to move back to Australia.
Okay, so tell us how that sort of procedure went.
Well, I was actually running my event business from Fiji whilst my partner at the time was running the restaurant, and I would come back every 3 months to do my events. And then it just, in the end, the restaurant opened, and it was a hard struggle with regards to when you run a restaurant that's open breakfast, lunch and dinner. Don't have a lot of time. And then I was juggling the events, and I just missed Sydney. I missed my support system, even though I had the dogs, and I just decided, like, it pretty much nearly broke the relationship. That's quite a personal thing to say, but I decided I was going back to Australia at this point, and I was taking the dogs with me no matter what. That's pretty much how it all came about moving back. So
the dogs sort of integrate into the restaurant, or they kept away more at home?
No, well, we lived there while we renovated the place, which was fun because we took it back to like literally the bare minimum structure, and the dogs lived there with me, and that was interesting because they were puppies. They're not guard dogs as such. Also, with all the leaks in the roof when you're having like tropical storms, that was interesting. But they lived there, and then we moved to another property down the road, and that was just when I had Shorty and Bob. And then obviously I'd come back to Sydney to work an event, and my partner at the time had said to me, "There's a dog living under the house," and but he couldn't. It was on not stilts, but as in like a raised house. He couldn't get her. She would just she'd live off the scraps, from the chefs.
Yep. Just then retreat into her zone and her life.
And she was tiny. Whether she'd because there was a village down the back there as well, so whether she'd actually escaped or whether she just smelt food, we'll never know. But she lived under the restaurant, and it took a couple of months to get her out of there with regards to food. And what you say, when we'd moved up to the other house, we would take Bob and Shorty to the restaurant, because eventually when it opened, you're not really supposed to have dogs in restaurants. It's not so strict in Fiji, but she was really intrigued by the two dogs. So she'd come out for the food, and then she'd come out just being really curious. Sorry.
That's all right.
And then, and that's how we caught her in the end.
Okay. Do you think being in that environment in Fiji, the socialisation aspect of the puppies is very different to how they would be, say, in Australia or in another sort of country?
100%. I mean, we took Bob when we first got Bob. We only had a motorbike or a trail bike as transport. So we took him everywhere with us in a rucksack. So literally we would take him to these resorts, because Fiji is a funny place. There's no restaurants as such. There's there'll be a resort or like some real dodgy cafe. So we just took him everywhere, and he was so cute. Everybody was very social with him, and he was social too, and still is now. But it was definitely, there's no rules there at all. So he was socialised. I think Shorty, we actually got her from the vets, but she was a street dog, and then she'd had her owner, and then they took her back to the vets. We never know why, but she's quite a needy, anxious dog. So very social, but a little bit too much. Okay.
And shy after the initial period, sort of like, was that a long drawn out process when she did sort of come around, or that she?
Yeah, Yeah, like I think Shorty and Bob were very bonded at this point, and she came in, and I think being another bitch, Shorty is never really took to Shy, even now. And they sort of kind of want Bob's attention. But Shy is one of them. She's not very social at first, but once you gain her trust, she's the most. She becomes everybody's favorite because she's so loving and she's so innocent. Where she'll do a thing. Like if people come round to the house, she'll do the warning bark, and then she'll go and hide out the back, and then all of a sudden you won't be looking, and she'll come and want some fuss. And then as soon as you give her a bit of fuss, that's it. She doesn't leave you alone, and like everybody just loves Shy. She's demure. That's the word. She's just beautiful. People just love her.
Oh, nice. So did they sort of develop any sort of like strange pack habits when they were with you near the restaurant?
Oh, Bob used to like to escape, and he jumps around like a reindeer, almost. Like it's weird. He's like a deer. He jumps around, and he used to fish a lot. So we lived on the coral coast in Fiji, where the tide's down. There's all the rocks come up, and he'd jump from rock to rock and just fish for hours. Like he could literally just be chasing fish for hours. That was quite hilarious. Shorty was just very, she's quite emotionally attached to me. So when towards the end of like Fiji, I was missing Sydney and knowing that I wanted to make a change, as in to leave. And if I'd be upset, she'd completely get it. So now if she's sitting on another couch and I'm watching a movie and I'm about to cry, she can sense it before I even start crying.
Oh, absolutely.
And she'll jump straight over to me. Yeah, which is, I don't know whether it's a good thing, because she literally is. You know how they say, there's dogs that are like their owners.
Yep.
Yeah, Shorty's probably the equivalent of me.
Oh, that's nice. I know a lot of people will say that there's that emotional connection, and I'm certainly not going to say that there's not. But my understanding is it's a science base where they can smell the different chemicals that we give off when we go into different emotional states.
Yeah. I mean, they can sense it, can't they? Like even Shy started picking up on it if I ever get upset, which she didn't before. I don't necessarily like that. I don't want them to think that I'm upset. I want to be strong for them. But that's just dogs for you. They're super sensitive.
Oh, absolutely. So did they have much interaction with other street dogs when they were there?
You know what?
No.
They didn't. I had to just think about that for a second. No. I wouldn't want them near them, to be honest. Like the street dogs, where we were was quite a protected area, so to speak. It was a one road of like restaurants, bar, like some dodgy bar, and a resort. So where the street dogs were completely in a different area, so they didn't have that interaction as such.
Okay, so they didn't have to defend their sort of territory to say, hey, this is where we live. No. This is where we get fed.
There'd be like there'd be people in our situation that had pets, like expats, that would have pets, so they might interact with them dogs. But no, there was never anything that I can remember of them actually interacting with dogs in Fiji. Obviously, they do here. But no, that's quite an interesting question, because it makes me think like, oh, did they? But the street dog, yeah, I wouldn't have felt comfortable with them interacting with them dogs neither.
Oh, that's fair enough. So you decided to come back to Australia and that the dogs were coming with you. Now, that was, I'm guessing, not an easy task to bring them back.
No, not at all.
Are you able to tell us a little bit about that?
It was probably one of the most stressful things I've ever done. Of course, Fiji being quite a third world country in certain respects is just the research. I mean, I'm a research kind of person. That's a lot to do with my job. So I like the research, but just making sure things were done right and properly. Do you know what? Like now, I'm on all these like forums of people that are bringing dogs back from different countries, and like, everybody gives them such great advice. But at the time, it didn't feel like I really had, like, I don't know many people that have bought dogs back from Fiji. I still don't. There's probably one person I know. So I felt quite alone and nervous. I had it in my head that one of them wouldn't get back somehow through health reasons and the tests that we had to do. I just had it in my head that might be Shy, because she was the stray of all strays. I call her, but it was really nerve-wracking, because the fact is you would spend quite a bit of money on all the tests, the medical tests, but not knowing then whether they would still get through.
Okay.
And the crazy part about it was all the testing that we had to do was sent to Australia to get the results, and then sent back to Fiji to say, okay, it's ready to go. So, you know, the blood work got stopped at customs and held up. And we were on a massive time frame. You had like X amount of days to get these results in and this to move forward. So there was a few little bits and bobs that dodgy things we had to do, as in persuading vets to change the dates of blood tests and stuff. Of which I probably shouldn't reveal that, but you know, it's a long time ago.
Oh, that's right. We're talking how many years ago now?
Probably 8, 9, but like, yeah, 8 years ago. So the thing is, it was also where we lived in Fiji was at the Coral Coast. So any vets was like 2 hours drive one way or the other. So it was a big trip.
Okay, that's more than what I thought. I thought there might have been someone a little bit closer.
No, the only vets were in Nandi or Suva. And then we had to do some research of working with vets over there that actually have done this kind of thing, because you had to get the crates built from scratch, which was super expensive, and just getting the vets on board with it all, you know, and then having a vet that you used all the time. It was different vets for different tests, and it got very complicated.
Oh, that sounds it. So you just said you had to get the crates built from scratch. There was a reason for that, you know?
At the time, I don't think this is the case these days, but at the time, you just had to get them built from scratch to the weight and the height and the size of the dog.
Okay.
It was really complex, because the dogs are very similar when it comes to weight, but the size, and I don't know, like, to be honest with you, it felt like it was just making more money. There was more money being spent. It was always money.
Okay. And getting them on the actual aeroplane, or the airlines, was that an issue as well, or?
Yeah, this is the bit that I didn't like, that I couldn't, well, you definitely can't be you could try and get on the same flight as them, but what happened is you needed like somebody to receive them, which was me. So I had to be in Australia, and then someone to send them, which was my my partner at the time, where I hate the thought of them being stuck in crates and stuck at an airport waiting, because you had to take them like 4 to 7. Like, I think it was even something near towards like 6 hours before the flight. And I'm just thinking they're sitting there in crates waiting to go on the plane. Like, that's the bit that killed me. Because they're not knowing what's going on. They don't, like, we built a crate and kept it in the lounge to try and get them to go in and out of it to get used to it. And they never did. So then they're put in a cage. Then they're going to an airport where there's planes landing and taking off, and it's really loud. They have no idea what's going on. Then they go into a plane where it's really loud, like, their hearing is super sensitive. But I the only thing that kept me sane was the fact that they were all together. But yeah, Bob lost his bark. He barked that much. He didn't have a bark when he got to the other end, but like, he barks now. He just must have whined and barked, because he's the pussycat. He's supposed to be the pack leader out the three, but he barked and whined that much. He lost his bark. Oh. And I hate thinking about that part. I've always said I will never ever put them on a plane again as long as they live.
So, touchdown. They land in Australia, and take us through what happens after that.
Well, I was calling and calling and calling just to make sure they were all right. But the fact is, you can't go and see them straight away. So this is another thing that bothered me. They could then go to the quarantine, but you can't go to see them because the restrictions of like the visiting hours of quarantine is ridiculous. It's like the most ridiculous. Like, you can only visit them in the week and a weekday when most people are working. Luckily, I was working for myself, so I had like time. But I couldn't see them for about 3 days. So then I'm thinking, okay, they've got off a plane. They're in a different country, a different climate from Fiji. And they're again in a cage. And they wouldn't put all three of them together. They would only put the bitches together, Shy and Shorty. And Bob was separate. And like I said, he's more the pussycat out of all of them. So it stressed me. I was worried sick. I was like ringing. I think the quarantine people were just sick of me, because I just wanted to know that they got there safe, that they were okay, and they went there, and then
understandably
just waiting to visit them. It was really. I just wanted them to know that I was on the other end of this. They're in a cage. They didn't belong in a cage.
So how was the reunion when you got in?
Amazing. Oh, absolutely beautiful. Like, honestly, it makes me teary. Like, I honestly, they were so happy to see me. And like, dogs are resilient. Like, they're troopers, dogs are. And like, they went absolutely mental. And like, I was just rolling around in this horrible cage in quarantine with them. And it was, well, I cried, of course. And they just, of course they're thinking like, Mum's here, and somehow through this whole journey of like being on a plane, like, it was like, it made me, words can't describe how happy. But then again, I had to leave them there still.
Leave them there.
Because they were there for a month.
Okay, I was going to ask that, for a month.
Yeah, which the laws have relaxed now, but it's happened. They were out in Eastern Creek in Sydney, New South Wales.
Which is another effort just to get out there to see them.
Oh, well, it became harder because when, whilst they were in there for a month, I was working, because I work events. I dropped a concrete slab on my foot.
Oh, no.
And ended up on crutches, so I couldn't even drive there. So I'd have to get the train and then get a taxi from Rooty Hill to Eastern Creek just to visit them.
Mm-hmm. So after all that, when day comes and they get released from their quarantine period, you remember that time? I'm sure you can.
I do. For some reason, when that day happened, I remember Bob, the way Bob was. Like partner at the time was driving, and Bob was like leaning on his shoulder from the back of the car. And he does that to me now, like he leans on my shoulder when he's driving, and it's lovely. And I've got a lovely picture of it too. And I was just so excited and relieved. I felt like the journey was over, because even though it was a big, like a long journey, like them being in quarantine was still, I still didn't feel settled until they would be home. And
home is home.
Yeah, and we didn't even have a home at that point, because we'd moved back from Fiji. He was living at his parents', I was living at my mum's. So we didn't have a home as such, but I just knew that I was taking them to their new life, pretty much. That's how it felt.
And how did they settle into their Australian home?
Oh, totally fine. It's like they've not even noticed what's going on. Like I always wonder about how they dealt with the plane journey. But and they're spoiled rotten, so like they've just, like I say, though, you're Aussie dogs now, you know.
Mm-hmm. Do you think there's anything that when that they sort of came across for the first time, like as in, whoa, we never had that before in Fiji?
Oh, food. Dog food. Like we couldn't get dog food. They had no toys. There was no way you could buy toys. Excessive. Like my mum would, when we first got them, my mum would send everything over, and then she would come and visit in Fiji. So they had like their leads for the first time. I've got this like adorable video of like when we tried to put Shorty on a lead and Bob was just dragging her around with this lead. That was quite entertaining. But yeah, so where we were living, the only food we could get was actually sardines in a tin.
Mm-hmm.
But that's still their favourite now.
Yep, and nice and healthy.
Well, I say it's their favourite. I don't know. They can't tell me it's their favourite, but they love it. And it was the cheapest thing you could get. You know, we give them rice and this and that. But I think just to be to have treats and be spoiled is pretty cool for them. I'm assuming they're spoiled. Like I work in the pet industry, don't I now? So I'm lucky. They are the most spoiled dogs I probably know.
Okay. Do you think there was any sort of change of habits between Fiji and Australia, as in when they sort of went out walking or anything like that?
Oh yeah, I mean we'd take them for a walk. They'd have the beach to themselves. There was nobody there, and there was a lot of litter as well, which I didn't like in Fiji. You know, they'd find like goat's heads. Like I can remember Bob coming out once with a goat's head in his mouth. I was like, what? And it still had the horns on it and everything. It was weird. It was horrible. Like I freaked out. But he loved it. But no, I tend to always try and take them to I've moved to the Central Coast where it's a lot quieter. I try and take them to beaches where there is nobody. Mm-hmm. So it's similar. They don't do well with other dogs and crowds and they're fine with other dogs. I think I'm more the problem for them not dealing with other dogs. But I prefer beaches where nobody's there and quiet. So, you know, each of their personalities is different when it comes to other dogs too and socialising.
Mm-hmm. So run us through that, if you don't mind.
Well, Shy's obviously very shy. She doesn't like any other dogs. And like you can tell, like if there's other people and dogs there, she's like looking back, checking, like looking, who are these people? Shy's all right. I'm sorry, Shorty's fine. She loves people. A bit too much sometimes. But she doesn't like bigger dogs. Bob, on the other hand, thinks he's bigger than he is. And he does this male dominant thing of like, you know, trying to like bump chest with like Rottweilers and he's just thinks he's definitely bigger than he is. And, you know, they've got into some little situations that have been not that bad, touch wood. But it's hard when you've got three and you're trying to manage that. with 3 different personalities that are super, super different. Like I get nervous, which then that my energy that
they pick up that.
Yeah. So I tend to try and take them out, like not all together sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But then I do love having the 3 of them, and they run free. And if there's nobody at the beat, like that's what my happy time of just seeing them all together, running amok, and no other distractions.
Oh, nice. So they share toys and things like that now? Are they sort of grown to play?
Bob's not interested in toys. He's interested in jump. Like, Bob's not slowing down whatsoever, even though he's 10. He literally acts like he's 5. He has no interest in toys. He loves swimming and also, jumping for the lead or jumping for a stick. Chasing birds, which has ended up getting me in trouble a bit in the past. And then Shorty is Shorty's just a character. Like, she loves swimming. So if you go and jump in the water and say you're going a little bit deep, she'll completely swim after you. So she's we call it a beaver, like a little beaver. She's got a coat like a beaver. And she's solid. And then Shy just goes along with everybody else, really. Shy chases birds, but she chases Bob after the birds. And, the toys, right. So the girls, right, we've had problems with the girls. So each one of them likes squeaky toys, yeah? Bob's not interested. But the thing is, Shy will cherish this squeaky toy and love it, where Shorty will rip it apart and take the squeak out of it with under a minute. But then what has happened? Like, we had one of them balls. There's a ball that's it's got a funny noise to it, and it's apparently for intelligent dogs, that keep them occupied. So we bought 2. One for Shorty, one for Shy. They're exactly the same, but they wanted the other, they always want what the other one's got. And Shorty would try and tear it apart, even though it's near impossible because it's this really hard plastic. And Shy would just be intrigued by it, but they literally want what the other one's got. You can buy them I've bought them replicas of each other, the toys. And they always want what the other one's got.
The other one, yeah. Grass is always greener.
This is the bitches. Yeah, this is the girls being girls.
Okay, I'm going to ask you, and you see if you can give me 3 answers. You might have already given me one with Bob earlier, but if you can complete the sentence, I can't believe my dog ate.
When they were younger, we got a big tin of Quality Street, the chocolates for Christmas.
Yes, yep.
And Bob being Bob, because he's always the mischievous one, and then the girls follow suit, but they're not as tall as him. He must have bumped the actual, the hexagon thing of chocolates, and it was completely full. He must have bumped it with his nose. Literally, that fell off the counter, bust open, and they ate the lot between them.
Oh.
He probably most, but obviously chocolate being toxic. I was super worried, and but what they did when they pooed it out, it was all still in the wrappers.
Oh, no. That's different.
Yeah, so it didn't touch the sides, so to speak. No pun intended. And also when they'd always chew my shoes and all that, but they ate a whole tub of vitamin C tablets. The orange chewable ones, so their poo was orange.
So, yeah. Was that another trip straight to the vet?
No, do you know the funny thing is, vitamin C is I was calling the vet. It was late at night. We were calling 24-hour hotline of getting advice. But really, vitamin C can't be that bad for them. The chocolate definitely would have been. And then Bob ate something at the beach that we'll never know what that was, and that we ended up at big sash. Bob tends to be the one that's got the 9 lives in more ways than one.
So when you say in more ways than one, is there something else you want to share about Bob?
Yeah, we were. We went away and he'd always go crazy. Like we'd go down these country roads and there was cows in this field and he'd go crazy at these cows. And he'd just be just crazy. I don't know whether it was, Like because you'd go past cows in other places. It was just this one place. And then we were driving past and he jumped out. He put his foot on the window thing, the electric window goes down, jumped out the window when I'm driving at probably about 70 kilometers per hour.
Wow.
Yeah. So the mad thing was, when it goes all in slow motion.
Mm-hmm. Sort of, yeah.
Where I'm driving, I heard him kind of he squeals or barks at the cows, right? So it literally went from the window starts going down. Marty saying he's out of the window, jumps out. You see cows running. All I could see in the corner of my eyes is cows kind of running away. Mm-hmm. But he was actually attached. His lead was still attached, so he dragged along, slipped his lead. I thought I'd run over him, so I was falling apart. And then all I could hear was him crying and put the brakes on, literally pulled up in the middle of the road, doors open. The other 2 dogs slipped their leads, ran out because they could see that the stress was going on and it was just, it wasn't pleasant. And he's just sitting there in this kind of ditch with his paw up crying and he was bloody fine. Well, you know when you have this thing, I know, when you have these moments as a pet owner, you're like, okay, the first thing that comes to mind is I've ran over my dog or my baby. Second thing is I hope he's all right. Third thing is bleeding out, how much is this going to cost me? When you say they're all right, it's like, oh my God.
Oh, always good to have a happy ending story.
It was, but I was shaking like a leaf, like it was the most traumatic. Oh, it was awful. And he was, he did have some scrapes, but he could have broke anything could have happened. I could have run over him. And there could have been a car behind me where I put my brakes on and the doors were wide open. There could have been a car going really fast behind me, but there luckily wasn't.
Did he, has he behave the same way with cows after that?
Oh, he's a nutter. He's crazy. He's just, I've not been up there since then. It was actually a holiday place, but I think I've heard from my ex that he's fine with cows now. I've not.
Oh, that's good.
I wouldn't risk it. I wouldn't be letting him out with cows anywhere near at any point, or chickens or rabbits or anything. But I think my ex-partner that I lived in Fiji with, he's very much a bit more lax than I am. I worry about stuff before it happens. So he said that he was at a farm recently with him and there was all kinds of livestock running around and he was completely fine. So maybe it's just the actual being intrigued of these cows. I don't know. I can't even explain it.
Well, Sharon, thank you very, very much for sharing all about problem. Bob, Shorty and Shy. It's a very, very intriguing story. Now, I know you've mentioned a couple of times you're doing a few things in the dog sort of world. Do you want to give your events thing a little bit of a plug?
Yep. So I'm the founder of Street Paws Festival. Hopefully, if some of your listeners will know it already. But we do an event, or we did events before COVID, 6 or 7 times a year, a lot up the Central Coast. I know you're based at the Central Coast too. And then we also run an event called Pups in Pubs, which is basically a small version of Street Paws, where we do things in dog-friendly establishments. But again, before COVID, that really took off. It was a massive thing of like loads of pubs were going like dog-friendly.
So they should.
So yes, if you can find us on Facebook or Street Paws Festival or Pups in Pubs.
Wonderful. Thank you very much again. And
no problem.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
Oh, it's great to have you on.
Okay, thanks. Thanks so much. Bye.
Thank you very much for listening. I hope that you enjoyed the show. Please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you are hearing this from. Or better still, share or tell a friend. Also, don't forget to check out the Relaxed Dog Podcast Facebook group where you can vote on I Can't Believe My Dog Ate. Until next week, stay safe and remember, your dog is family.